Hello there, Atheist Junior here, your friend and humble narrator, and in today's video I'm going to be responding to a video from Matt Powell Official that was directed at me. Before I say anything else, I'd like to make a quick disclaimer. Now, Matt Powell belongs to a religious organization called the NIFB, which is basically a bigoted fascist recruitment organization hidden behind a very thin veil of religiosity and Christianity. Their bizarre religious claims are basically a distraction, and when you address those claims, you amplify that aspect and you take attention off of the real issue, which is their stated intent to take down the American government, install a fascist theocratic regime, as well as trying to marginalize and harm the LGBTQ plus community on a very large scale. So I'll include some clips to prove my point. Ultimately, by making this video, I'm not really damaging them. In a way, I'm sort of helping them. I recognize this as an unfortunate fact of YouTube, since I'm a fairly small channel, and doing response videos when I'm called out is how I have my channel grow, so it is what it is.
A conference exposing the reprobates. The name of our conference is Make America Straight Again.
This is also built on a bullshit idea that we used to all be straight, that this is what things used to be. No, it used to not be socially accepted, but there have always been LGBTQA plus individuals across time, across the world.
Utah Outcasts, oh, believe me, we are happy that you do, and you and your couple reprobate blank blank, let's just say it rhymes with hag hard or slag fard or something like that, buddies aren't of any interest to us. And yet here you are, making this kind of public comment on your YouTube channel.
Now, to avoid this video being too confusing, I'm going to lay out a sort of timeline here. Back in the beginning of July, Matt Powell went down to Kent Hovind's Dinosaur theme park and gave a presentation during what Hovind called boot camp. I responded to basically all of Matt Powell's presentation, which was called The Case for Creation, and it took me 2 parts since it was kind of a long video. Powell watched like the first 2 minutes or so of the second part, found a clip that he thought made me look stupid, and then took that clip out of context and made a response video from it. His video is titled Educating Atheist Junior About Geology. I'm not really sure why my name is in quotations, and I'm not sure how it's supposed to educate me considering the video is less than 4 minutes long, but I figured a response video was in order. I'll show some of Powell's video, and then I'll show the actual context of where he got my clip from, and then I'll respond to, I want to say claims, but he only really makes one claim in the video, so I'll respond to that.
Why don't we find any animal holes that burrow down in between the layers? I mean, if you have a layer comm, you got animals and vegetation growing.
Wait, what? Okay, first off, these layers are solid rock. What are you talking about? This is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard Matt Powell say.
Now, my talking point that I always like to bring up is there's no bioturbation. There's no animal holes between the layers. So let's say you have a layer come, solidify, another layer come, solidify, Paleozoic, Mesozoic, Archaeozoic propaganda, and everything slowly over time. Well, here's the thing. Why don't we find any animal holes that burrow down in between the layers? I mean, if you have a layer come, you got animals and vegetation growing.
Wait, what? Okay, first off, these layers are solid rock. Second of all, the animals in the layers are dead and fossilized. What are you talking about? This is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard Matt Powell say.
Digging down in, we don't find that in any of the layers. So do you know what that means? Is that the layers were all deposited at the same time in one event. We don't find any tree remains. We would expect to find roots from trees still in the ground, preserved.
So one of my favorite proofs of Noah's flood is the fact that we actually find dinosaur tracks that stomp through millions of years of supposed geologic time. And what they do is they actually bend the rock layers, these tracks. According to evolution, the layers of the Grand Canyon, for example, were laid down slowly over millions of years, and they would solidify as they were laid down. And so you have a layer come, solidify, another layer come, solidify, another layer come, solidify, and you have Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Archeozoic ages in the Grand Canyon. And they say that this all represents millions of years, and these canyons were formed over millions of years. But the truth is that we actually find dinosaur tracks that stomp through and bend the rock layers. Now here's the thing, you cannot bend hard rock.
Wait, what? Okay, first off, these layers are solid rock.
And so what that means is that these layers were soft when they were laid down. And so all of the layers simultaneously that the dinosaur stepped into had to have been soft, because otherwise the rock layers would not have bent.
Real quickly, I want to define what the word bioturbation means, which is the disturbance of sedimentary deposits by living organisms. So not just burrowing animals, but also plants, microbes, animal tracks, nests, and many other things. So it's not just animals that can burrow, but plants with roots that can grow into the soil on land, but this can also happen on the seafloor. And fun fact, the formal study of bioturbation began in the 1800s by Charles Darwin himself experimenting in his garden. So the reason that I look so dumbfounded in that clip is because Matt Powell seemed to me that he was suggesting that there should be evidence of animals burrowing through geologic layers like the ones found in the Grand Canyon. What I was saying is that considering those layers are made of solid rock, there was no animal on Earth that had claws or teeth strong enough to burrow through such material. And these layers took such a long time to form that no animal or plant would have had a long enough lifespan to be burrowing through two separate geological layers at the point where they meet. However, upon doing more research, along with some help from the awesome people in the Science Team Twitter group, I found that the issue is more complex than I first thought. So, what Powell is basically saying here is that we don't see any evidence of burrowing between rock layers, and that's because these layers formed too quickly and because it happened during a global flood. He says if there were time gaps, we would need to see evidence of burrowing. Well, there actually is evidence of such burrows at many rock horizons around the world, but any geologist will tell you that we don't expect them at many other boundaries for a lot of other reasons. For example, prior to the evolution of terrestrial life, rocks formed on land, and they would not show evidence of burrowing, because nothing existed to make those burrows. So bioturbation totally did happen in many different places, but even where it didn't, it's still totally compatible with deep time. So he's saying that bioturbation didn't happen and we don't have evidence of it, therefore a global flood explains that and happened, but we do have evidence of it happening, and this is not a problem for geologists. Often things that creationists suggest as being a huge problem for geologists really aren't. And if you just talk to them, they'll say, yeah, that's not a big deal.